Okay, I will jump into things. Good morning, good afternoon, and it's good evening for some. Welcome to the Research and Immunology Professional Community Town Hall meeting. So thank you all for being here. This, I believe, will be recorded and available to others that can't make it today online. So if you're listening in, please feel free to post on ICHLT Connect any follow-up questions or email one of your professional community leaders any specific questions. So hopefully today, I think we'll have plenty of time to get to our agenda. We'll talk about we'll review our current incoming PC leadership group, go over some membership statistics, highlight some opportunities for community involvement at our annual meeting in Prague, go over some 2024 planning, and then really solicit ideas from our membership today. So there's a lot of time for discussion and questions. So this is your 2023-24 Research and Immunology Professional Community Representative Group. I'm Danny Calabrese from UCSF. I am the chair currently. I think I see Adriana. Maybe you want to introduce yourself briefly. I think you're muted, sorry.
Okay. Adriana Zibi. I am the director of Tissue Typing Laboratory in Pittsburgh, and I'm also representing the histocompatibility immunology. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. I see Mary Amanda too, if you don't mind saying a few words.
I'm Mary Amanda. I'm also at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm in the Department of Psychiatry. I work with all of the transplant programs, mostly on clinical research.
Thank you. I didn't think I saw Phyllis on yet, but she is our representative from Toronto to MCS, and you'll see her around. Forum, I know you're here. Do you want to say a few words?
Hi, I'm Forum Kamdar. I'm at the University of Minnesota. I'm an advanced heart failure and transplant cardiologist, and I'm the representative to the Early Career and Trainee Committee.
And last but not least, Mark, I see you there. Hi.
Hey, Danny. Good to see you and everyone. Mark Simon. I am a member representative to the Pulmonary Vascular Disease IDN, which I chair right now. I'm an advanced heart failure and transplant cardiologist at UCSF and direct the pulmonary hypertension program here.
Thank you. So this is your group of leaders. If you have any questions specific to either your IDN or your research focus, then I would lead you to them to start after this. So here are some, we'll go through some slides on statistics around the research and immunology professional community membership. So we are a multidisciplinary group. This is showing, I believe, what percent each of the professional communities are made up by multi IDN. I don't think this is well represented by the fact that research and immunology actually is the top second choice for most people within ICHLT. So we're one of the leading professional communities as number 2. We've actually been growing. And so this is the number of members we have in our professional community. We're at the bottom, though. I think we're number 5 or 6 for total membership numbers, and we've grown by about 15% since the year 2022. So I think that's pretty good, considering that some of the other professional communities are very organ focused, like cardiology and pulmonary, in addition to surgery. So it kind of underscores the importance of research and immunology in ICHLT. And then this is looking at the composition of our society in general. So the various IDNs are in blue, in decreasing membership percentage. So heart failure is the largest IDN, followed by lung failure, then MCS and pulmonary vascular disease. And I think last is people that maybe aren't directly associated with an IDN or industry. And then research in immunology is dominated by both heart and lung failure IDN. And it looks like, I come from a lung transplant background, but a little overrepresented by our group. So a pretty diverse representation in research in immunology. And then this is just for everyone's consumption. ICHLT has switched to a tiered system to help trainees and physician, non-physician members from diverse economic backgrounds afford membership in ICHLT, and also to encourage their participation in our events and meeting. And it's been a new initiative, but has been successful. So there's, as you can see here, actually a range of members that are coming from these different tiers. And it's been increasing over the years. We've also, I don't have comparator group here, but our membership in general is still dominated by North American centers. However, the non-North American groups are growing year over year. So again, speaking to perhaps the success of that tiering program, but also the fact that we're becoming a more internationally diverse society as well. Just reviewing some of our last year's successes, we had a webinar called From Bench to Bedside in November, moderated by Phyllis Billy and Andy Fisher. We had 4 talks that looked at some lung science that made its way to the patient bedside, some cardiac science that made it to the patient bedside, and then some upcoming translational science that is in the process of translating to the bedside as well. It was rather successful. Here we're looking at all of the professional community webinars over the last year, as well as those that are upcoming. And we had almost 100 registrants, which is a lot, especially given the size of our professional community. There were 30 in live attendance, and we had almost 80 after the fact YouTube views, which again, those total registrant counts exceeded most of the other professional communities that have had webinars this last year, and those that are upcoming as well. So I think that speaks to the multidisciplinary nature of research in immunology in our community. Just want to call everyone's attention to our pre-conference day coming up in Prague. This is the first time we'll be having a diversity, equity, and inclusion workshop. I believe registration for that is free, and it would be nice to have some research in immunology representation there. So you can go to the ICHLT website to sign up. There are also 3 ICHLT academies on the pediatric core, heart failure and heart transplantation master's course, as well as an MCS master's course as well. And I think Mark's involved in that last one. Or Phyllis, sorry. Our annual meeting, the final abstract is now published. I believe the embargo on the full text of the abstracts will be lifted at the end of this month. Overall, we had 46 symposia and 3 general sessions, and I quickly went through and just looked to see how many were coded as research in immunology relevant. That's almost half of them had some research in immunology focus. So I think that means we did a really good job with our symposium proposals over this last year. We will be meeting in person in Prague. So we're at the bottom of this list. This has been constructed to prevent the professional communities that have dual membership from meeting at the same time, which was a challenge, I think, last year. So on Friday, April 12th at 6 o'clock local time, we'll be meeting in South Hall. And so this is open to all research in immunology members. And the topics of what we'll be discussing are still yet to be decided. And really, that's the first open question I have for this group. Are there any specific topics that people would like to bring up, any issues that they think would be important to discuss with the broader group. Feel free to use the chat or unmute yourself.
Can I ask just a general question? I think one of the things I've seen over the years in terms of research in immunology is support for pilot grants. And I know ISHLT has done a ton to try to grow opportunity for, partner-sponsored grants and ISHLT-sponsored grants, which I think is totally awesome. Do you know anything about kind of the longer term vision of that? Like, will they stay small grants of $100,000 here, $100,000 there, or is there a vision for more substantial support for multi-center work in the future? It's more just a curiosity than necessarily something we want to talk about. We need to create. Just a question.
I think
Sure.
that's a great question. I defer to Greg. Yeah.
Yeah. First, the grants right now are somewhat constrained by what our industry partners are willing to support. And we work with them to come up with research questions that are broad enough so that they make sense for the organization and not just from a commercial standpoint. But the longer term goal of the ISHLT Foundation is to create an entire funding pipeline so that we have those kinds of startup grants, and then also more complex and longer term research funding available for people at different career stages, and especially including multi-center kinds of programs. So I think we are a year or two off from being able to realize that, depending on the continued funding that the ISHLT Foundation is able to generate, with the goal of becoming a self-sustaining engine for research funding that is not strictly reliant on industry to identify the grants that are being made.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, Greg. I mean, I think many people on here, I think we have a good representation of people at different career stages, but I think part of the way to get people into the fold is to see their interest and then provide some funds. So I'm so excited to have seen that develop I think this is my 12th ISHLT or 11th ISHLT or something coming up. So I really commend ISHLT for really working on that. And I think, we'll be able to see the fruits of that grow over the next decade, which will be fun.
Yes, agreed. Thank you.
Greg, do you think it'd be possible to have a representative from the foundation at our networking event? I think Kira's not the only one I've heard that has questions about how it's going and what the long-term vision might be, and it might be nice to have someone on hand.
That
just to
is
give
a
5-minute
great
overview.
That's a great point. I think that yeah, we'll try and let me look into that, because it would be good to have somebody from the foundation at all of the professional community events. Of course, they all occur at the same time, but I'm sure that we can arrange for somebody to be there to provide some information from the foundation at each of them, just 2 or 3 minutes, and hopefully answer a question or two. That's a great comment.
Solicit donations too, I'm sure.
That's the constant spoken and unspoken subtext. Yes.
Maybe I'll just add to that, if that's okay, Danny.
Please.
Yeah, I just want to say I think that's really important, and I'm actually going to be the incoming chair for the Grants and Awards Committee starting April, and Kathy's outgoing, and I think between her or me, maybe one of us or someone else, either from the committee or from the foundation, can come give an update, and it sort of makes me. So maybe I'll just sort of say that first, and and Greg couldn't have said it better, but I'm also very excited about grants restarting and more foundation grants coming up. And I'll make another point if I can.
Please.
So my other point was, I think it's always, I think ideally you want to have these professional community meetings be sort of brainstorming sessions, but sometimes it works out that way. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to get people talking. So I think last year, maybe we even talked about that. We were thinking having people come to give, like, 1 or 2 slide updates about other things happening, right? So grants and awards and foundation is one thing, but maybe someone from the publications oversight committee or standards and guidelines and an education committee and these different committees. You may not be able to get everyone, but a few of these to give maybe some updates to the community. That may be nice because it's on a smaller level, even though we have these presentations in the larger forum as well. And also the other thing that I keep thinking is maybe still beneficial is just an outline, and you may have been planning to do that already, but an outline of the structure of the society with, what are the IDNs and the PCs, which I think many of us are probably still confused about, even though we keep trying to catch on to that, and just allow for some question and answers. What do you guys think?
I love it. We were talking, so I think some of the people, maybe everybody here, if they read their ISHLT Connect stuff, there's an acute lung allograft dysfunction standard and guideline that myself, Stephen Juvet, and Greg Snell are organizing. So that's something where, like, a specific piece of that is how do we craft a clinical definition guideline to facilitate ongoing research, whether that's clinical research, basic science research, translational science research. And so that's something that in the coming months, we actually want input from RIPC members, from their perspectives of what they think is feasible, what do they like, what should research considerations be part of a definition, or are they not related? So I think that's something where if you were trying to get things to kind of pick at people to talk about, this is a topic of interest in lung, but I think heart and MCS and PVD have their equivalents of kind of what is your most common problem that's actually hard to study because people aren't doing things the same way. And I think that's, we all have, I feel like everybody has a biobank, and we all have them, right? And I think we could all increase utilization of them for focused question asking as a group. And so that would be something that I think when you have an interested small group of people together could really feasibly turn into actual output.
If I can just sort of add on a little bit to that, agreed with Teresa on the outline of the organization's programs, because it is still difficult to figure out what is what and where. The second, for what Chiara mentioned regarding, especially for some of us that are maybe interested in studying a much smaller group of people. So something that I mentioned, I think at ATS this last time, after the multi-consortium, was of course anyone who's interested in disparities research, but not clinical outcomes, but sort of genetics, immunology, sort of things that would require a biorepository. I think some of these would be especially important because each one institution does not have enough to do those kind of studies, but together we could be more powerful in those, in sort of starting some of those areas as well.
I fielded a lot of questions over the last year from junior members about how to get more involved in RIPC. So that'll be a specific focus of some of our networking discussions too. So I think that fits in with the organizational schema as well. So how do junior members and early career members get involved?
Can I ask an immunology question? Full disclosure, I have not read the whole ISHLT program. So if this is included, that's my ignorance. One thing that also comes up, we always kind of comment that the immunology piece is really important, but we don't always have that at the forefront. Can we maybe strategize non-HLA antibodies and how those are being used and what they are and what we're supposed to be doing with them? I mean, that's definitely an immunology question that has a little bit more clinical implication than necessarily just a science implication. But we have some really fantastic experts, some of whom I see here, And I mean, I think certainly weekly in our program, we get a result that we don't know what to do with. So,
If
you know,
I can,
could
if
we
I-
brainstorm to help our community interpret those or plan for what we should be tracking, so maybe we can interpret them 5 years from now? Adriana, I don't know.
if I may add a few sentences to that, in the lung symposium, or heart or lung, because they're together, it's a two coin. I have to, in fact, in a very short period of time of 10 minutes, to tell you both about HLA, non-HLA, looking from the heart to the lung, lung to the heart. The major issue that we have, and it's in progress, is the reagents and what commercially are available from two different companies. I use them both. I published, but you have to really work. We have a good output for the lung. We had a 5-center kind of coordinated effort. We did the same thing. We looked for CLAD. There was some association. It's published just now in Journal of Heart and Lung, and I can refer to that. Ellen Reed did some very nice work in heart, again, looking with the other commercial plus what they have done. So there is some basis to grow, but we need to bring in experience. And it's not easy to say you have a very clean interpretation. You have to have a lot of different questions: what is there or not there, DSA, no DSA, how you follow, what is the background of the disease. And so it's in evolving. Now, if you use like AT1R, which is something that is more published in all the organs, it's easier to come up with a level and what it means. But the other newer targets, autoantibodies, and they are still in evolving. But I think there is room for hope that starting to with this commercial and interaction between centers, we come to a same language. The only problem, I'm coming to Prague. I'm presenting in the pediatric core. I'm presenting on the 11, but I'm leaving on the 12 because I arrive like on the 6th, and I just don't have so much time that I can be away. So if I can provide something in writing, or we can have that in a different forum like this, I can, before the Prague, I can present something to the group or discuss, if that would be valuable, because I won't be there on the 12th. I'm flying home.
If you want to send me that, I can make sure it gets presented at the networking event. And we're really lucky to have Adriana part of our leadership group. And I guess a kind of an adjacent issue that we identified over this last year with RIPSI is that it's kind of the home for the HLA immunogeneticists, though there's no standing route for someone that directs an HLA lab to kind of come onto the HLA, onto the RIPSI leadership group. So we're expanding to an extra role to have an HLA professional there year round and guaranteed as part of our leadership group. So questions like that will be much easier to address. And then also, Kira, if I may, I think it sounds like this would be a really interesting question for a partner organization too, like ASHI. And so it's a professional group of the histocompatibility specialists I know Adriana is part of, where that sounds like a great question for a consensus statement to dive into.
Or a webinar.
Or a webinar too.
Yeah, a webinar would be nice. We can bring in different people, different aspects.
So I will put this
Maybe
on
we can
our.
all go visit Adriana when it's warm there, and then when it's cold where other places are. So
Before we move,
interesting.
Before we move on, are there any other discussion ideas or topics that the group would like to see presented at our networking event in Prague?
And then I think brainstorming for proposals for the next program, right? I think
That is coming up in a few slides. Why don't we talk about the future annual meetings, and then we'll get into that. So I think I saw an ICLC Connect message about the next 2 years scientific programming committee lead. So next year it'll be Karen Cush, and the year after that will be Caroline Patterson. So we'll be in very good hands for our next two meetings in Boston and in Toronto, respectively. After that, we'll be in Sydney and then Seattle, which is a new location, I think, for our conference. And then, as Teresa alluded to, there's a lot of different programming needs in the next year. And so I saw a forum posted that, that there's one potential way to get involved is for junior members to do Journal Watch, but I think being part of webinar planning and topic ideas for the meeting is another good way for members to get involved in RIPSI. So I think this is the HLA and non-HLA antibodies is an excellent webinar suggestion. But are there others, I guess, for either the JHLT open special issue? It's a little early for symposium planning, but if there was a hot topic that didn't make it into the programming this year, that's someone wanted to see program next year, I can keep that on the back burner too.
Danny, one quick question. Let's say we were to have any thoughts throughout the course, who do we send them to, or do we?
You can send them to either me or any of the other RIPSI leaders. It's probably better to organize it topically. So if you had a question that you wanted, for example, the pulmonary IDN to think about, I can route it that way. Same thing with the other leaders as well.
Okay.
We are through we're moving our way through a standards and guidelines process. We're at the end of the prior year. And so the standards and guidelines has approved several consensus documents and statements that will be worked on in the coming year or two. This is a list of the new documents that are being assembled. So right now, the only people that are assigned to these are the document leaders. And so Kira's mentioning one, but there are a number. There's an open period for solicitations of involvement through February 13th. So if anyone here wants to be involved in any of these, there is a form here. It's also posted in the open forum on ICHLT Connect. And then I'm happy to send out this link too if anyone puts in the chat. I can send it to them directly. There's been an outpouring of interest, I know, from the lung side for several of the consensus documents. So please raise your hand if you're interested in getting involved.
Yeah, I think I just want to say that I think this is important to make sure that there is like research and immunology PC representation on many of these. Probably there may already be, but it's a good idea to make sure.
I agree. I think there are very special issues that our community thinks about and are important to address in pretty much every one of these consensus documents.
And then there are others that are underway. I mean, I know I reviewed the one recently on heart candidates, but I'm not sure how ISHLT decides who is asked to review them. I mean, I know that generally it's open and anybody might be able to look and send comments, but I don't know if it tends to go through the IDNs or what. Maybe Greg could clarify that.
Before I say something that isn't correct, let me double check that with Megan, and I will let you know in a minute.
Okay, because I don't know, for example, for this heart candidate one, it certainly relies heavily on a variety of kinds of research. It's a very lengthy document, but I don't know if the RIPC was asked to have anybody review it in particular or not.
That's a good point too. It would be nice for a lot of these if we can formally review as a community. And then I put the link to sign up into the chat too. And then on the same topic, are there any ideas that are RIPC related for S&G development in the future? So new standards or guidelines? I think we'll all be busy with a lot of the current ones for now, but the next cycle, I think, begins in the fall.
So the reviewers are selected by the project leads and approved by Standards and Guidelines Committee.
So there's project leads, usually 1 to 4, and then there are section leads, which lead kind of large, broad swaths of each of the documents, and then many writers that are part of each of the sections. It's usually how most of them are organized.
And then, I mean, so for this hard candidate one, the message that we got through the IDN was just that people should review it. And so I did. Evidently, I was the only one who did review it, and I don't know if a similar message comes to the individual communities, or if it's just expected somehow that members are going to be looking on ISHLT Connect and seeing things. And so in the same way that the hard IDN was asked if we would look at it, are the individual communities asked whether somebody on the leadership or someone else would look at it? I guess that's my question.
Okay, I will check that.
Greg, I think that the PC involvement is more at the authorship level, where the people decide which PC should be on the writing committee. But it may be a good idea to also reach out to the professional community specifically for additional feedback. That's interesting.
Yeah, I believe that is correct, that the PCs are asked to contribute writers, but I don't believe they're asked to contribute reviewers now.
Those are very important questions. So looking forward to hearing the answer I can disseminate too. That is all I had for today, unless there were other topics or points that everyone wanted to bring up. Looking forward to seeing most of you in Prague. Again, if you have any questions ahead of time, feel free to email me or one of the other professional community leaders. And then hopefully we'll have an exciting program for you at our networking event.
Oh, I do have an update on the reviewers. Sorry, I'm communicating with Megan by Teams. So the reviewers are selected by the project leads, as I mentioned. But that list often comes from the people who responded to the call for contributors, which is posted to all members, but not posted to individual professional communities.
And then I guess they get additional reviews, like when the IDN was asked for us to look at it, because I wasn't asked to be a reviewer, but I wrote like a 10-page review. So maybe
Right.
I wasn't supposed to really review it. I don't know.
No, then additional reviewers are identified through the IDNs, but not the professional communities to fill in gaps.
Okay.
Well, maybe as IDN members on the steering committee, we can recommend that certain professional communities review.
Yeah.
If we think it's salient.
Yeah, it might make sense. I mean, the earlier comments about, I guess, one that's currently underway that is having a research component, you would think that logically, then the professional community would be asked to have somebody look at it.
Right. Yeah, I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, I think the idea is that there should be sufficient sort of expertise already, but that's probably a good way to check in addition.
All right, well, I will give everyone a little bit of their hour back. It was an absolute pleasure to see you all. Thank you for your participation. It's, it's not a professional community without you, and look forward to seeing you in Prague. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
And thank you, Danny, for your leadership.